and welcome to The Wire. I'm Shravasti Dasgupta. The stage is set for the Vice President's elections due to be held on September 9th, which is tomorrow. Battle lines have been drawn between the NDA candidate CP Radhakrishnan, who is the governor of Maharashtra, as well as former Supreme Court Judge B. Sudershan Reddy, who has been nominated by the opposition India bloc. Now, today we have seen that two parties, the BJD and the BRS, have announced that they will be abstaining from the elections tomorrow. So what does this mean going forward? And the fact that the NDA already has a comfortable majority in the electoral college, what will this mean for the fight which the opposition has described as an ideological battle? To discuss all this, I'm being joined by Ajoy Ashirwad. He's political editor at The Wire. Thank you so much for joining us, Ajoy. First off, let's start, before we get into all the numbers, let's talk about the news that has come in just today, which is what I was just mentioning, the fact that the BJD and the BRS have said that they will be abstaining from the elections.
Yes.
Now, the BJD has gone back to its old line, which is that we are equidistant from the Congress and the BJP. But the BRS, on the other hand, has cited the plight of farmers and cited the urea shortage and said that both the Congress and the BJP have ignored the farmers' plight and therefore they are going to be abstaining from the election. Did you anticipate these moves by both the BJD as well as the BRS?
So they have always, obviously, they've always been very uncertain about what position to take in as far as national politics is concerned, because they have always pitched themselves as a very state-centric party, regional party. First, Biju Patnaik and Naveen Patnaik, they've always insisted that they are very. The BJD is a very Odisha-centric party, and it has got not much to do with the national level alliances and all that. So similarly, the TRS and later, which became the BRS, it has always pitched itself as a very Telangana-centric party without much to do with national parties, and that kind of political posturing has always been the USP of these parties. And even during the elections, they have always pitched themselves as a state-centric party, because their focus has always been assembly elections and not so much Lok Sabha elections. So my information is that Naveen Patnaik who's currently in Delhi and is recovering from his illness. He was admitted a few days back in the Bhubaneswar hospital, and he has recovered now and is traveling currently in Delhi. And he had a meeting with the BJD MPs, and currently the BJD is in a sort of conundrum of which way to go, because they've lost the elections in Odisha to the BJP. So they have to play the opposition role in Odisha also, and that opposition has to be against the BJP and not so much the Congress. So as a result, there's a substantial section of MPs in the BJD which favors opposing the BJP in every which way, be it in state or be it in Delhi. But there is also a substantial section of MPs. BJD has 7 Rajya Sabha MPs. It doesn't have a single Lok Sabha MP. So amongst these 7 and senior leaders, there is also a substantial section which is more inclined to be joining the NDA at the national level. And to kind of dodge these kind of growing differences within the party, Naveen Patnaik seems to have taken a safer route. Let's abstain, and let's abstain because, as we know, the results are not do or die for any of these alliances. And had it been a situation where these parties actually mattered, their votes actually mattered, then they would have been in a position to kind of seek some leverage from either of these alliances. But that's not the case. And that is why Naveen Patnaik has gone back to what he says is equidistant policy from both India and NDA. And similarly, KCR, his party is actually, imploding from within. KCR's daughter Kavita recently resigned from the membership of the party and has alleged her cousins and also her own brother KTR of being corrupt and spoiling her father's name. And as a matter of indiscipline, she was first suspended, following which Kavita resigned from the BRS. And so again, there is from KTR, especially today, KTR announced that their first option is Nota, but
Yeah.
because the option is not there in the ballot box, they will abstain from the. And again, I must say that they don't have any Lok Sabha MPs. They have only 4 Rajya Sabha MPs. So they are also trying to kind of re-pitch itself as a very Telangana centric party in a situation where a national party is ruling Telangana currently, which is the Congress. We must remember how in the run up to 2024 elections, it's the same BRS, KCR, K. Chandrasekhar Rao, was trying to reorient its party from a state only party to a national level party. And it changed its name to Bharat Rashtra Samiti from Telangana Rashtra Samiti. Then KCR went on a big rally to consolidate its base in some parts of Maharashtra. It tried to negotiate with national level alliances to project itself as a national level player. But after the loss in assembly and Lok Sabha elections, and so they have again gone back to its Telangana only state. So these are the dynamics. So there's one side, there's vice presidential election, but around which a lot of these regional parties are trying to kind of pivot and doing something to keep their relevance intact in their respective electoral playgrounds. So
Let's
this is
also talk. Yeah, let's
yeah.
also talk about an interesting dimension of this election, as you were just mentioning, is about how parties are reorienting and pivoting back to their original constituencies in a sense. But I think an interesting part of this vice president's election has been the campaign of the two camps. While on one hand, we have seen B. Sudarshan Reddy, who is the India bloc candidate, he has been quite visible in the media. He has been meeting all parties that constitute the India bloc, going to different states, whether it's in UP or Bihar, along with India bloc members. But on the other hand, we have seen that CP Radhakrishnan, who is the NDA's candidate, has not been as visible in the media. But in terms of the attacks that have come, they have come directly from the top brass of the government. Amit Shah led from the front, accusing B. Sudarshan Reddy of supporting Naxalism with his Salva Judum judgment. And today again, we have seen the BJP has accused B. Sudarshan Reddy of talking about the constitution, while he has recently met Lalu Prasad Yadav, who has been convicted of corruption. So how do you see this difference in campaign strategy, where on one hand the candidate is speaking where the India bloc is concerned, on the other hand we have the BJP's top brass speaking for their candidate who's likely to win anyway?
Yes. So, Shravasti, you'll be able to answer this question better because over the last 1 month you've interviewed Sudarshan Reddy and also been following the vice president's election very closely. But what I could gather from see, we are living in a very, very different political climate from, say, what was 10 or 11 years before, where elections to constitutional positions like the president or the vice president were relatively more friendlier kind of a competition, a contest. But given how the Modi regime has conducted itself and its top brass has conducted itself, they have tried to politicize everything, each and everything, even a small municipal polls. Leaders like Amit Shah they have tried to link it to some form of ideological agenda, in which here in his attack against Sudarshan Reddy, who was a Supreme Court judge, and the judgment was not his, but of Supreme Court. It was when Shah says anything against Sudarshan Reddy's judgment and not him personally, then it is actually criticizing the Supreme Court, and the former Supreme Court judges did not take it lightly. We have This was perhaps for the first time when former Supreme Court judges and High Court judges had to write a note dissenting against this kind of a campaign, dissenting against Amit Shah's statement that Sudarshan Reddy, in which he claims that Sudarshan Reddy is a Naxal sympathizer. Sudarshan Reddy, to be fair to him, he has been like really calm about it. Has given his responses in a very sober way, and has actually blunted uh, through his calm demeanor, the kind of polarization Amit Shah or his likes wanted out of these vice president's election. We must not forget that this vice president's election was actually thrust upon the current dispensation, and there's a background to it because of the sudden resignation of former uh, Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar, who whose resignation came all of a sudden, and we were not given proper context or justification of why he resigned. We know that Dhankar, ever since he has resigned on purportedly on health grounds, has almost disappeared, and suddenly we know a few days back that he has met the dentist to get his teeth checked, and then following which he left his house and went to Abhay Chotala's farmhouse. These are small bits of news that's coming out. We have had no statement from Dhankar. We have no proper responses from the BJP. So this is a vice president election which was unexpected even for the BJP, and for me, like, as all other events during this regime, Amit Shah, by trying to politicize this vice president's election, which was forced onto them, is trying to kind of divert attention from the dissent within the Hindutva camp. There's one side Dhankar, and so it was clearly clearly a forced resignation. VP Dhankar's resignations. Not everything was well between the Prime Minister and Dhankar, as we earlier reported. So and then rather than having people to talk on these issues, Amit Shah did a very clever thing by trying to kind of reorient the whole campaign talk to Sudarshan Reddy and his Salva Judum judgment. And as a home minister, he was very well placed in talking about these things because he has also launched a kind of unprecedented military operation against Naxal operations in central India, which has its own other dimension. This was again a deflectionary move, but it was also in a constitutional parliamentary democracy. It was also kind of stooping very low, according to me, because it was clear that the NDA has the numbers. The home minister did not need to kind of show a former Supreme Court judge in that or pull him to into a personal kind of a attack. So it was not needed, but Amit Shah still went ahead and did it. So that
But then
speaks of,
that's also true of their style in general, right?
yes,
That if there is any election, they want to make the election the talking point, and they'll have the top leaders
yes, yes.
speaking and attacking instead of the candidate per se.
No matter how to, yes, Travesti, but you interviewed Sudarshan Reddy and you asked these questions to him. How did he respond? What was the general response like? If you could.
So when we asked him this question, he said that you will agree with me that it was not me who raised the temperature of this election, and he said that he wanted this election to be very sober and not something, not a highly polarized election. And he even said that he did not expect that the election would become polarized, because the vice president's election is for a constitutional post, and he said that he did not expect that this kind of an attack would be coming from the home minister himself. And interestingly, he also said that it was not as if the home minister and him are fighting for the post. It is in fact Sudarshan Reddy against CP Radhakrishnan, but you had Amit Shah himself leading the fight in kind of criticizing him. And today, of course, we have seen former law minister Ravi Shankar Prasad. But B. Sudarshan Reddy's whole campaign has been about highlighting constitutional values. For a moment, when we did interview him, his response was that he doesn't want to respond to why the home minister is saying these things, because he said that I leave that to the wisdom of the home minister about why he's talking about this. And of course, the fact that you mentioned earlier that it was not his personal judgment, it was a judgment of the Supreme Court. And in fact, we also asked him about the fact that the Congress used to call B. Sudarshan Reddy Manohar Parrikar's yes man when he was appointed Lokayukta in Goa. But so, in a sense, Sudarshan Reddy has been accused by both sides by now. But let's also speak about the numbers a little bit, because
Before, yeah, before that, Shravasti, I was curious. There were many things you already written in the interview with Sudarshan Reddy, but could you get a sense of why Sudarshan Reddy was in the fray, given that he too understands that the numbers may not be in his favor as the India bloc candidate?
yeah, so his sense was that this is not about the numbers are not in his favor, and it is about a fight for the constitution. And he said that at this point it is clear to everyone that he said that he does not believe that all institutions have collapsed completely, but they are definitely under attack. So this was, and he said that there is a need to rebuild constitutional values in our institution and to kind of resurrect them, and particularly individual freedoms and the dignity of individuals has really taken a hit in the last decade or so. And that is the sense I got from him, that as a person, or as he himself
Yeah.
described himself as a person of the constitution, to return to constitutional values, and which is kind of similar to how the opposition has also positioned this fight, that it is a battle between the RSS and the constitution.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting because this election, as we know, that was thrust upon, was forced onto the NDA camp, and the opposition, which is suddenly looking very kind of energetic in different kinds of campaign against the SIR or in Bihar or in general taking up issues with greater alacrity. So it's kind of interesting that opposition also took this opportunity to again reinvent or kind of thump its constitutional nationalism campaign or save constitution and save Dr. Ambedkar's values uh, even in the vice president's election. So which kind of shows that the opposition is also alert to how the political climate has turned into something which we did not see say prior to 2022 before the Bharat Jodo Yatra or in the initial years of Modi's regime, first two terms. So this year has probably been opposition's best year in since to 2014. Yes, but you were saying something.
And definitely the choice of the candidate itself, as Sudarshan Reddy himself said in that interview, that it is definitely a fight between a person, CP Radhakrishnan, who has been an RSS ideologue. He has been a member of the IRSS. He's a rank politician, a veteran politician, but he has made his ideology very clear. And therefore Sudarshan Reddy said that therefore I had to come and tell the people of the nation that I am a man, a liberal Democrat, and a person of the lives by constitutional constitutional values. So in a sense, the fight, as you were saying, has also come down to the main points between the between the BJP and the opposition at this point. And we know that the vote chori campaign is also going on simultaneously. So the nomination of Sudershan Reddy in this regard, where they are claiming that the election commission has been compromised and independent constitutional bodies are not functioning the way they are supposed to. Therefore, his nomination becomes important. But the fact is that CP Radhakrishnan still has all the numbers in his favor, and even with BRS and BJD, who have decided to abstain, we have about the electoral college will comprise about 770 members, and the halfway mark is 386. Now we know that the NDA with its 425 MPs is comfortably ahead, even if all 324 opposition MPs vote in line. Today we saw that mock polls were being held by the opposition camp. We know that in the BJP camp too, they have been very strict in teaching MPs how to make sure that their votes are cast in the correct manner. It's the first past the post system. So, is there any anticipation of cross voting in your opinion?
Yeah, there's some of the Hindi channels, as I was telling you earlier, were reporting through sources in the NDA that they have some kind of expectation that a certain section of opposition may cross vote. And to me, like, even if that happens, it won't be unexpected, because we've seen such instances. But I don't think that the kind of interest the India bloc has shown in the VP election, conducting mock polls perhaps for the first time, that you vote, cast your vote correctly, because there are many first time MPs here. There are people who may be voting for the first time in an election which follows the electoral college system. So where first preference votes are counted first, and if someone attains a, so there is a good chance but that cross voting may happen if from different independent parties. So we know that BJD and BRS, they will abstain, but there are 7 independent MPs, and there is one Akali Dal MP who is more likely to vote for the India bloc candidate currently, because Akali Dal has started almost a political war against the BJP in Punjab, and then there is. I think some parties in from the northeast, I think Mizo, Zoram Thanga's party, they also have one MP. So it all depends on where people vote. Even then, yeah, even if cross voting happens, but it may not be only against the India bloc candidate. Some of these NDA allies, not allies, but people who are expected to vote for CP Radhakrishnan, may also end up kind of voting for Sudarshan Reddy. But eventually, the result, I think, is now tilting towards CP Radhakrishnan's election. But it's a sea change from 2022, when VP Dhankar, Jagdeep Dhankar, won with probably the highest number of votes as the VP
Yes,
candidate
over
against
500
Maharashtra.
votes. Even, that's
Yeah,
unlikely to happen for CP Radhakrishnan, even if everybody votes in line.
he
So,
votes.
the maximum that NDA MPs can get is about 425. So, which is the maximum strength. So that 500 number is not going to be breached either way.
Yes, and NDA could pull more fence-sitting parties to vote for Dhankar than they could do it for CP Radhakrishnan. So the alliances, although BRS and BJD, they have abstained, but both these parties are very critical of BJP also, which wasn't the case with the BJD, at least in 2022. So all of these factors, there is a slight, all the pointers show that the NDA is on some kind of decline, and they are trying to consolidate. Where India bloc, which was in pits, is now kind of resurging, is on the path towards resurgence. and we'll have to see whether if these graphs go similarly in the next few years or not. VP elections is only a small thing, but there are other things. So, and hopefully, if CP Chandrasekhar, the way they've projected him, CP Radhakrishnan, the way they have projected him is a very old school politician, very statesman like. So we should so if he's elected, then probably will not see those kind of that kind of polarization that we saw under Jagdeep Dhankar, who sided, or who did not even pretend to be in a constitutional post, and scolded the opposition ranks like a school headmaster, and favoring without any kind of filters, the favoring the NDA or the treasury benches in Rajya Sabha. And we have never seen that we have had such bad Rajya Sabha discussions where the leadership or the chairmanship, vice chairmanship of is questioned almost every day by the opposition ranks. So, and suddenly his departure. So it's all very filmy, very dramatic, and I hope that CP Radhakrishnan focuses, or whoever the elected VP is, focuses on discussions in the Rajya Sabha rather than scoring political points with the treasury benches.
And
So
then that's a great note to leave it on, the fact that we have seen that the vice president's post, and who's also functioning as the Rajya Sabha chairman, has become so politicized in recent years, especially with former Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar, and his unceremonious exit has once again raised the questions that if you are doing so for political gains, then what is it serving you? So, final thoughts, Ajoy, on the fact that the circumstances how these elections are taking place, that we saw Jagdeep Dhankar under his chairmanship, over 100 MPs were suspended before the 2024 Lok Sabha elections from the Rajya Sabha. He was accused of being so partisan by the opposition that an impeachment notice was to be moved against him just in December. He, in a sense, bent over backwards to please the political masters, but his exit was, in no other words that can it be described than to say an unceremonious exit, where even now it is not explained what happened and how he fell from their good books. So final thoughts on where Jagdeep Dhankar is at this point, and how this situation has played out.
given his political profile and how he has conducted himself, he's uh, gone ahead and claimed his pension benefits when from the time when he was an MLA in Rajasthan. So I think he'll be, and given the fact that he has chosen Abhay Chautala's farmhouse to live in, so I think he's exploring political possibilities currently, because he has now seen, so he's going back to being a community leader from the community that he comes from, rather than being a Hindutva foot soldier, even in as the vice president. So all those bending over backwards has come to a knot. There are many stories going on, we all know that, but one of the stories was said that he wasn't supposed to, the government did not like that he entertained opposition ranks in filing an impeachment motion against against Allahabad. He accepted that impeachment motion while denying BJP the chance to lead that anti-corruption narrative. It wanted the so there are many stories going on. We all know that, we have already reported it earlier. But all those bending over that those acts of submission, even in a constitutional post, came completely became undone with just one wrong move. So this shows the kind of authoritarian mindset that the government wants to control all constitutional positions, and that is what exactly the opposition has been saying, that this Hindutva campaign on the streets is one thing. There's so much of violence on the streets, but the actual political game is being played in the way all these constitutional offices, institutions are being kind of completely taken over, and one of which is Election Commission of India also, in the and how it has come under scrutiny, or under the scanner of the opposition camp recently. So VP election, it will also be one. We'll have to see this vice president's election within this larger political climate, in which opposition is trying to assert, is trying to kind of resist this whole authoritarian expansion of the government, and the government is exactly doing what it has been doing, but it is becoming more and more difficult for the government to play the same authoritarian game, because it lacks the numbers now, and it has to change its political maneuvering, and is now forced, because it lacks its 250 MP part. BJP lacks its own majority in the Lok Sabha, and it will be forced to keep its allies in a good, in good stead. Otherwise, and we know that how Nitish Kumar and Chandrababu Naidu, these two principal players, they have seen a lot more politics than the prime minister currently, and have been in different camps, and they are not the ones who will completely surrender to the Hindutva agenda of the prime minister. and
All right, so
and
we'll have to we're losing time right now. So thank you so much, Joy, for joining us. We'll have to keep our eyes on all these developments. Tomorrow is when the elections are taking place, and we'll have to see whether, as Ajoy was pointing out, all these factors do play out in the elections tomorrow, and whether cross voting really comes into play and becomes a factor in the vice president's elections. Thank you so much for joining us.